And I take a look at the stories making headlines around the world, and we'll begin with The Times, which is carrying an incredible picture of the aftermath of storms here in the UK, as many UK papers are actually. This shows a railway line left hanging in mid-air after a sea wall was washed away.
The Financial Times covers a continued investigation into alleged foreign exchange manipulation in New York. Their banking regulator has demanded documents from more than a dozen banks.
Still with the Financial Times, Google's 3-year antitrust fight is over. The internet giant has agreed to make some concessions on the way it ranks its searches.
And the Daily Telegraph carries a warning from a UK think tank that the British tax system is punishing success. They go on to suggest that lumping more taxes on the rich is not a sustainable long-term strategy.
A report by the UN urging the Vatican to take tough action on sexual abuse cases makes the front page of the International New York Times. The report claims that those who covered up abuse should be held accountable.
And back in the Daily Telegraph, there's a warning that girls who play with dolls are holding back the economy. A minister in Britain claims that girls are guided into low-paying jobs because of the toys they play with when they're young. That explains a lot.
Why are you looking at me when you say that?
I'm talking about myself.
Mark Davies, CEO, strategy consultancy, Camberton, is here. You've got 3 young girls.
Good morning, I have. I've got 3 young girls and a boy.
We'll talk about this in a moment. Gosh, you keep yourself busy for children. I'll
Why
tell
do
you
I'm
what.
out of the house at this time of the morning?
Yeah, good excuse. I feel so sorry for so many people who are suffering with these storms at the moment. I mean, they're not just here in the UK.
Yeah.
There's bad weather all over Europe, from Slovenia all the way. Spain's had ships being turned over, high winds. Picture on the front page of the Times. It's bringing into question what David Cameron, the UK Prime Minister, is doing about this, whether enough funding's getting through, whether or not people are being protected.
Well, he's put through more funding yesterday. He stepped into chair the Cobra meeting yesterday, and he announced an extra £100 million that was going to flood issues. But I think you're right. I mean, the point is, this is a massive tragedy for a whole group of people. For us, it's just a question of, oh God, we're getting rained on every day and we're being blown around every day. And, you know, it's an inconvenience and it's all a bit depressing. But then you see a photo like this and you think, oh my God, you know, for some people out there, this is a much, much bigger issue. Looking at this photograph of the railway, and you can just thank your lucky stars that there wasn't actually a train going past at the time.
Yeah, it just reminds you of the calamity of the situation, doesn't it? Let's move on to the Financial Times now, talking about this probe into foreign exchange manipulation. Just talk us through exactly what's going on here.
Well, one of the questions is that they don't know what's going on. They think that foreign exchange traders have been manipulating the price. So, in effect, agreeing a sell price at the time that they take the buy price so that they can make money. And I think the question that jumps off the page of this one is, what have the banks not done wrong over the course of the last 5 years? They seem to have been involved in manipulating just about everything. Martin Wheatley was in front of a Treasury Select Committee yesterday. He was saying this is probably bigger than the LIBOR scandal.
Yeah.
The LIBOR scandal, in turn, was bigger than the insurance mis-selling scandal. It's all wrapped up in part of the same sort of thing. It's one thing after the next. This has come from the Federal Reserve in New York, but the Financial Conduct Authority in London has got the same concerns. And all the big banks, all the big names appear to be involved.
And it's interesting that also this article takes a look at certain people who are leaving various institutions from the currency side, from the foreign exchange side as well. Have they had any clear-outs?
Well, I think foreign exchange trading has become increasingly difficult to make money, and that probably is partly the reason why people are moving out. I mean, there is a line in this story that says, yes, a veteran of 28 years of the industry has moved on, and by the way, it's not connected. Always hard to tell, isn't it? And
interestingly, that veteran of the industry who's moving on is 28.
No, I think I made exactly the same mistake. He's a 28-year-old veteran, i.e., he has been in the industry for 28. I had exactly the same double take. I thought, God, you're a veteran at 28. You know, gosh, doesn't leave me.
I know. What have I been doing wrong?
Front page of the companies and market section of the Financial Times takes a look at Google, and a couple of newspapers are having a look at this. And again, it's taken a look at this deal to end an antitrust fight. But one of the questions being brought up is with Google, when you've got a technology company that breaks barriers, that continues to tread new ground, how do you police such a company?
Well, I think the answer is you don't. Regulation is always a really difficult thing when you're talking about technology. Often regulation stops the development of businesses and then forces them, therefore, to act more like old businesses did, which is not good news for the consumer. Ultimately, for me, Google is where it is because it provides a product and was the first to do so really well, which everybody loves and everybody uses. Now, of course, if you've come in behind them, you'd love a piece of that action, but people don't talk about the other. I mean, I was looking at a couple of other search engines. There's one called Foundem, which was partly responsible for bringing this. There's another one called DuckDuckGo. No one says, I'm going to DuckDuckGo that. They go, I'm going to Google that. And unfortunately, that's why Google's where it's at. And regulators can do everything they want to try and stop that. It's the fact that you and I all use Google, and more to the point, we talk about it as if it's part of our everyday lives.
But I mean, just to remind our viewers, the issue at stake here is that Google's almost been trying to outsmart itself. Its algorithms, which have proved so successful, it's overriding its own algorithms to put paid-for ads above those searches that when you Google something might actually come up at the top of your screen.
Yeah, that's right. And what they've agreed to do is to make sure that some of their competitors get included in those searches as well. The competitors have said that this is almost worse than doing nothing, which does raise the question, what did they want done?
Yeah.
So I think it's a tricky one. I do have some sympathy for Google because they do get hit on the head a lot and they're a victim of their own success.
Let's talk about the Daily Telegraph. You're going to have to explain to our viewers why. I mean, again, an amazing picture on the front page about Britain showing Britain being battered by storms, but it's also got a story on how the tax system is punishing success. Now, this sounds like it's protecting people, but bearing in mind who the Daily Telegraph is aimed at. It's protecting people who just feel that perhaps they're being punished at the upper end of earnings.
Well, I think what's interesting is that the headline doesn't in any way, as far as I can make out, reflect the story. Because what the story is telling you is that the Institute for Fiscal Studies has said that relying on too small a group of people for too large a proportion of the tax is risky, because if those people move or something happens to them that reduces that tax take, the impact is disproportionate. Why that translates into the headline that it does, other than the fact that it's the Daily Telegraph, I'm not absolutely sure. The point is that 1% of people are paying 30% of income tax. Now, you can have an argument as to whether that's the right number or the wrong number. The Institute for Fiscal Studies says that that's risky because 30% of your income tax could go if 1% of your people move. And that was the thrust of their report. It's just not reflected in the headline.
Let's move on to the international New York Times briefly, if we can, and this UN report that came out about child abuse cases coming out of the Vatican.
Should the UN be telling the Vatican what to do?
Well, that's the interesting part. They treat them like they're any other country, and I think the Vatican sees itself as something a little bit different and shouldn't be sort of lectured as they see it. There'll be an awful lot of people who are very grateful the UN is weighing in and think that this has gone on for too long.
So, 3 girls, 1 boy. Do you dress any of your children
The idea
in
that
pink?
I could tell my children whether they should or should, my girls, whether they should or shouldn't wear pink, they decide entirely what colour suits them. They decide what they're going to play with themselves.
Well, that's another issue when it comes to parenting, and we'll leave that to one side. But I suppose what this piece is saying is a minister has said that parents who dress their daughters in pink and restrict them to playing with dolls are holding back the economy. How has this leap been made in the Daily Telegraph?
I've no idea. I did look up Jenny Willott. She has got 2 children. Unfortunately, I couldn't work out from the information I could find whether one of those 2 or 2 of those 2 were girls. But it does seem an extraordinary jump to make. It says that as a result, you stereotype them and then they move into things that are stereotyped to girls in turn. I thought we'd moved past quite a lot of this stereotyping.
Well, I was brought up mostly wearing second-hand boy clothes, so I wonder where that leaves me.
That explains the glamorous dresses now, doesn't it? That's why you just will not be seen looking like a boy again. Yeah, I didn't wear pink either. I don't know what it says. Who knows? Mark, it's always a pleasure having you with us. Thanks very much for joining us. Alice and I will see you very soon.
Hello once again. At least Thursday offers the prospect of a day where winds will not be a significant problem for many parts of the British Isles, but we still have concerns about the amount of